Hi everyone. On May 9th, the Holy Orthodox Church celebrates the repose of a wonderful Georgian saint named Shio. His name was actually Shio of Mgvime. Initially, though, he was born in Antioch, and to very pious parents who were able to, because of their very wealthy nature, were able to give him an excellent education and raised him in great piety. Well, St. Shio, at the time, relatively young, decided that he wanted to seek the counsel and advice of another great saint who was in the area, and his name was St. Ioanni of Zedizeni. Now, St. Ioanni was known throughout the area as being a true and wise elder in all respects. And so he went to him and decided, well, perhaps he would like to enter the monastic life. And St. Ioanni said to St. Shio, that's fine, except you certainly must have the blessing of your parents. So St. Shio returned to his parents, but he said nothing and just waited. And after a certain period of time, wonderfully so, both of the parents decided to enter the monastic life. And at that time, St. Shio went back to St. Ioanni and said, this is what has happened, and would you receive me now? And so St. Ioanni at that time received him joyfully into the monastic ranks. And there he remained for about 20 years. And then after that 20-year period was up, St. Ioanni had a revelation from God that asked him to set aside 12 disciples of his and to go into the land of Georgia from the land of Syria in order to evangelize. Well, St. Ioanni was, of course, obedient to this revelation, and he selected St. Shio as one of the men to go with him. St. Shio, when he arrived in Georgia, became a truly great ascetic in everything that he did. There were many hardships, some of them very redolent of the things that St. Mary of Egypt went through, except that even in that time in the caves there were a number of wild beasts, but they never seemed to trouble St. Shio. At one point he had prayed so hard and so much that he saw a bright light one day, and within that bright light were the Most Holy Mother of God and St. John the Baptist. This really encouraged him, and he continued praying even more. And then at one point he had decided that a church should be built in that area near the Zedizeni mountain. And so he put a hot coal in his hand and put incense on top of it and prayed to the Lord that he would direct him where this church should be built. And he followed the smoke, and when the smoke stopped suddenly and seemed to make a pillar rising into heaven, St. Shio knew that this was the place that the monastery should be built. Now, there were many other things that happened with St. Shio at this time, but perhaps one of the most remarkable is that a king in that area, and of course at that time Georgia and Syria were not like they are today, but there were all sorts of fiefdoms, and one of the local kings sent an ambassador who was out to see St. Shio and asked for his blessing and advice. Well, the man came and was so overcome with St. Shio in his wisdom that he stayed and became a monk himself, really his second in command, if you will. Well, St. Shio was thrilled by this, but the king was beginning to wonder after a long period of time what happened to his ambassador. So he himself went out looking. He went out into the wilderness with some of his entourage, seeking out his ambassador, wondering what had happened. And he found St. Shio, and the king himself, upon meeting St. Shio, was completely overcome. The man was simply glowing, and because of this, the king, knowing that he had found a truly holy man, fell down on his knees before the saint and removed his crown. St. Shio helped the king to his feet and took the crown and put it back on his head. And the king said, now I understand, and I need advice from you as to how to be a good ruler. And so Saint Shio said, "You know in your heart what it is you should do. Follow that." And after this, the king began some extraordinarily charitable activity, distributing money everywhere, helping people in the entire region, and especially helping Saint Shio to erect that church. And finally, that church was indeed put up. And at its peak, it had over 2,000 monks there. Saint Shio, of course, became a very noted person in the area, someone who had worked many miracles, including a man who was blind, who, when he kissed his feet, received his sight again. He is quite well venerated, and his monastery still stands today. It's only a testament as to the nature of true holiness and the effect that that true holiness working through a person can have on many, many people who come into contact with it. May we all, in our own small way, imitate Saint Shio in our own acquisition of this holiness, so that others around us also may find the way to our Lord. Bye-bye.